woken up, and so I just did a bit of meditating, and now I'm at a friend's place in kind of the sticks, running the sticks of Germany, this beautiful kind of forested area, and yeah, just hanging out. Should we tweet? We probably haven't got anyone watching yet, hey? So we should probably tweet it out, or what do you reckon?
You can just you could probably tweet out because I'm streaming it on Twitter as well
Oh,
as
you are on
YouTube.
Twitter.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
so
I'm
maybe I'll just
streaming
try
it.
to
If you can tweet out
your
that
stream.
stream, that probably
Yeah.
will
Did
work
did you
well.
did you link me in the? No, I can never find you on Twitter. What's your username again? Like, how do you
It's
spell it?
down the bottom of the screen there on my label here on screen.
Oh, okay, at 43 OG. Yeah, I always forget if it's like the number 40 or the um.
I wanted it to be 43 OG, but there's no way that that was going to be available.
Yeah, right. 43 OG. Okay.
Welcome to everyone. And when I say everyone in the chat, I mean one person might be in the chat right now. Don't you love it when the ratio of people actually streaming is like there's more people streaming than there are people listening. So I wanted to talk today about DeFi. I just want us to I want to know. I think we're on the same page when it comes to DeFi. I think you and I are very we believe very much in the same stuff. I think,
Mhm.
but I wanted us to flesh it out a little bit, and
Okay.
as something that could maybe stimulate that conversation, I wanted to bring up a tweet that Richard Hart put out um, quite recently,
Yeah.
and that tweet reads: "Blockchains are a library. Blocks are people's writing, math, art, speech. Blockchain software is the publishing software you use to publish the speech you've created to the public. The First Amendment protects your right to communicate with your fellow man. Banning the pen would be worse than banning a book. Blockchains are the digital pen by which you make permanent, immutable, provable speech to the world. They are a unique tool by which you can prove that you said something at a certain time. A tool which lets you communicate with your fellow man permissionlessly, as God intended. A building block for the digital future of man. The Constitution has been proven in court to protect numerous types of speech, from dance to nudity to code. Blockchains are more than just speech, they are also the very tools by which you can broadcast your ideas to the world, often a Turing complete, vast world of possibility." I enjoyed reading that.
Yeah. It was nice, eh?
Yeah.
I just read it this morning. It's obviously his reaction to the SEC's complaint. The thing is that he's been completely ready for this. Like, he would have known as soon as he was going to make his own cryptocurrency that, at some point, if it was successful, they were going to come at him, and he designed it with that specifically in mind, and he's done everything that with that specifically in mind. And it's interesting because, like, he has kind of painted a target. He did paint a target on himself.
With all the outrage marketing, especially,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, he
know.
totally, like, and he's not dumb. He did that very with intent. Like, he knew that. I mean, he might have even been hoping. Like, when you draw a target on yourself, why are you doing that? It's because you want them to come at you.
I'm not sure that you ever want a government agency to come at you. I'm not sure that that's ever what you actually
Mm,
want. I'm sure that there were preparations made. Like I feel like everything that he did in preparation. I remember, like, on multiple occasions, listening to him and just noticing that he was choosing like his words very
Oh
carefully.
yeah,
You
undoubtedly.
know,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so yes, I think that there was always an expectation that something like this could happen, but you can never predict the future. You can never say this is going to happen. Um, it's I think what you
I mean,
said tonight was spot on, Bluey. That if he can fight and beat this, right? If he can fight it and beat it without necessarily like going the route of paying a fine or anything like that just to make it go away, it
mm,
would actually set precedents for
yeah,
DeFi, and that would not only be to the benefit of Hex, Pulse Chain, PulseX. It would be to the benefit of every EVM chain, every sort of DeFi protocol. There would be precedents set that would help the whole space moving forward in relation to at least the US, and that
which
that
leads the way in.
jurisdiction.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And it's not as if he's the only one doing that. Like, like XRP have been in the courts for years and have just had their first decision, which also sets precedent that these tokens sold on secondary exchange, secondary markets aren't a security. And like, so it all adds up. It's like, it's not as if,
The retail, so that the precedent, I guess, that is being set with the XRP ruling, or it was a ruling, wasn't it? It was in court.
yeah,
Um, was that retail, the retail side of it, people interacting with these protocols, um, that side of it's not the security. So if you take that and then you would apply it to like all of the Richard Hart ecosystem stuff, how does that make any of that like how does that suddenly become a security?
yeah,
It's like it's gonna be, but I was listening to the Twitter Spaces with some of these people from not really inside the ecosystem, who were making comments, and they were like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, mate." You know what I think? I think it doesn't matter if you probably don't have well prepared a well prepared legal team. I think it matters, like if you've got a well prepared legal team who've been preparing for this from prior to any of it, prior to launch. Like think about that stream that Richard Hart did with the lawyers when Hex launched. Like how, like think about, and this is not even a lawyer. This is just him discussing it with lawyers, and think of how like how much thought had been put into it prior, that he was able to have that discussion with them for 6 hours or whatever it was, or 4 hours, and go through every point that they would bring up and address it. So a lot of thought was put into it. Like every angle was looked at,
yeah.
you know, and I truly believe he did his best to read the law and put something together that fit into the context of what's written in the law, and do it in a way that was not, so that it wouldn't be deemed as a security if you read the law. Now, what I heard these people talking about on Twitter the other day, um, made me think that they're just like they're drawing a conclusion before they're considering the detail.
Oh,
They were just coming to a
people speak out of their asses so much, it's ridiculous. And they speak out of it with such authority. It's just like, I was listening to this a lawyer, really great lawyer actually, Viva Barnes. It's a podcast and stuff, and they were talking about the Ripple case, and he was talking about the history of the SEC, and he was saying that when it was first set up, it was only set up to specifically deal with stocks, but deal with the stock exchange, like specifically to make sure that all of those, that investors have, like some sort of regulation over all of those, all the stocks that people were putting up. And then they extended the powers to include more and more things like commodities, and then they just kept extending, like governments do. Hey, and it's a regulatory body which only makes civil actions. They can recommend things to their DOJ, but like that's all they can do is they just recommend. So they either try to sue or they recommend, and
They also interpret the law.
yeah, they make up their own stuff. Yeah.
No, but they also they interpret the law, and this is just from what it looks like to me. It's like they interpret the law, but then they speak as if their interpretation is the law.
Yeah.
And from what I can see, they make a lot of mistakes in their interpretations. From what I've just seen over the course of the last few years, they make a lot of mistakes in their interpretations. And from what we read, I mean, you read that claim as well. To me, it looks like, not just to me, there are actual many factual errors in that claim.
Yeah.
Many factual errors, which is, I guess, problematic for them, don't you think? Once it hits a courtroom, it makes it quite. I mean, if your whole claim is full of misinformation and factual errors, provable factual errors, then it sort of
it's not a great start, is it?
It throws the whole claim into this, into this area of just it's questionable. And the other thing that's questionable, like just the jurisdiction in which it's been filed, like in New York, and the reason for it being is because the company, the incorporated company,
Uniswap. It's because Uniswap is in Brooklyn. They have offices in Brooklyn.
But the code is open source, right? So if the code is open source, that means.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to try to. Oh, I can't. Hang on. Wait there a second. You keep talking.
Yep.
Mate. I'm going to deal with some stuff.
Yep. No worries. So what I was saying is the way that they've decided that it's going to be, filed in New York, to me, that just even that is extremely questionable, because this is open source code. Where was this code? Where was the PulseX code deployed? Even the incorrect information in the claim, which says that PulseX is on Ethereum, when in actual fact it's on Pulse Chain. It's the whole thing is yeah. So I think that whole side of it is going to be interesting to see, because even if that, let's just say it got thrown out of court there for that reason, it doesn't mean it couldn't get filed again in a different jurisdiction, and they couldn't go about. They couldn't put forward a whole lot of other factually incorrect pieces of information. But it's going to be interesting to watch this space. I really don't think that this is going to be over anytime soon. I think this is something that's going to drag out for a while, which is not necessarily a terrible thing I mean, it's not great for Richard Hart, obviously. I wish the whole thing would go away, for his sake. but from an eyes on the space perspective, if that can uh, if that can if it can be if it gets drawn out and then can be beaten, I think that would be really, really good for the space. And I don't like, I listened to a lot of people over the last few days talk about, this idea of the centralization of the ownership, the ownership. Hang on, I've got you on mute. The ownership of tokens in Hex and Pulse and PulseX, and how that's how problematic that is, and then something can't be DeFi if that's the case. And so and I heard Randman saying something to that effect, um, that it was everything's too centralized to be DeFi, but something that we've done early on is distinguish between network decentralization and
Financial
the decentralization of
ownership. Yeah, people get
yeah.
that mixed
And
up all the time. Hey,
the thing is this though, um, in proof of stake, like centralized ownership means that you have like voting powers. Basically, you've got the voting right if there's a DAO or anything like that. But I think all you can do is look at how things have been run in the past, like how the last 4 years, 3.5 years of Hex, for example. All you can do is look at that, because I don't think there's anything out there that's 100% decentralized. Like people will argue that Bitcoin is decentralized, and maybe Bitcoin is, the most decentralized thing out there. But there are elements of centralization. You might argue that Ethereum is one of the most decentralized chains out there, but there are elements of centralization. There are elements. And when you look at something like Hex, Pulse Chain, PulseX, it's like, can this stuff continue without without Richard Hart, without you know any core devs that exist, if there are any? Um, can it keep going without them? And I think the answer is yes.
yeah, undoubtedly. And like in terms of like all that differentiation between financial decentralization and the actual security, I think you have to start getting into really real specifics. Like, what is the attack vector, and what are the solutions to that attack vector? And like so in terms of if proof of stake, it, like if it is financially centralized, and then therefore that actor can take over the network and do something, what would be the reaction to that? Like, people would fork the chain, and they'd go
Well,
off and
people
make
would
their
just
own.
leave it. People would be like,
Yeah,
I don't trust
this
in
chain.
this. Yeah. So the second that is destroyed, that so I guess the point is that no matter what network you have, from what I can see, there's always going to be some point. At some point, there's going to be like, you need to accept that for example, in Bitcoin, you have to accept that there's like only a few like major pools for miners. There's lots of pools, but the major ones that are the majority of the mining that goes on, there's like two or three,
Yeah,
and they
I
take
know.
up the majority of.
Yeah,
So
and
so
Bitcoin in terms of financial and also the mining centralization has both of those as well. Like, there's attack vectors in all of these, but the attack vectors aren't strong enough to well, the attack vectors are, the, like the defense is strong enough to deter the attacks, because it would be pointless.
yeah, and there's like for Ethereum, for example, that thing that happened with Tornado Cash, like I mean, for a lot of people who are watching it, they're like, hang on a second, this is not supposed to happen in this space, right? This is not supposed to happen. However, it it serves as a warning of what can happen, and then it needs to be you need to code around it. Yeah, you need to
But like
like
people have been
have
still using Tornado Cash.
yes, people are still using it, but most people can't. Most people can't. They don't know how to.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like most people can't use it. That's the problem with that.
Yeah, I mean that's a similar thing with what Uniswap did to us in the last couple of days. It's like
Yeah,
we can still use their contracts. We still are using their contracts.
yeah.
It's just that
Someone needs to then code around it and build to fix that flaw.
but we kind of
You know,
have.
so
We kind of have. We just spun up
yeah,
our own front
got
ends.
fixed.
Yeah.
Yep,
Within
that's right.
hours.
Yeah. Well, wasn't swap.hedron.pro there for before? Wasn't that there for a long time?
It was uniswap.hedron.pro, but then when that link uniswap.hedron.pro, you couldn't put that up on Twitter.
Okay, so
Like
you changed it to swap.
Twitter was blocking that link. So then
Oh,
he
right,
changed it to, so that's why he changed it to swap,
right, right. Smart.
which is kind of
Why
interesting.
shill Uniswap? Why
But it's
shill
also
Uniswap?
it also shows
You
it
know,
also shows coordination between
I think
Uniswap
it just.
and
I think.
Twitter.
Um. Yeah. I mean, it could be just that Uniswap was just going around, sort of reporting. I don't know. I don't know how much coordination there would have been. You know, it could be just from one side from Uniswap just coming out and saying, "Hey, these people are faking like our front end by having." Do you know what I mean? Like they could argue that if you've got Uniswap in your domain name, then you're faking out. You're trying to trick people into using a domain that isn't us, um, which is
Uh,
nonsense to you and I, but it is what it is. I think that the fact that this stuff can be worked around, this is the problem that the powers that be are always going to have when it comes to code, and that's
yeah, it's
why
whack a mole.
yeah, but that's why what Richard Hart wrote in that tweet is so important, because yeah. Now I want to take the other side of the fence. Let's just explore what could be the negative, the negative side of that coin of just
Of free speech.
of free freedom, free speech in terms of code.
I mean, there's all sorts of negative things you could have potentially. I mean, you could, put up a design that people could build their own handguns and print their own handguns,
Mm,
and it is, like, or the plans for a nuclear bomb. You could put that up on somewhere and give people instructions on how to build a nuclear bomb. Um,
mm,
Instructions on how to best kill people or something like that. I mean, there's all sorts of, the parade of imaginary horribles that we could come up with that we would say are ethically or morally bad.
it's sort of like the fear. It's always that fear narrative. It's like, what if
Yeah, it's just
this?
whatever
What
fears you
if
can come
that?
up with, you can play out.
So is that? Do you think that's that the only thing
Downside.
that pushing people, the
Well,
only
it's
thing that would
important.
push people to go against the freedom of speech in the way of code and blockchains?
No,
Is
well,
that the main argument, that it's
no,
like the
no,
fear of?
because the argument is the same as, like, well, bank robbers use cars to get away, so let's ban cars. hammers are used to kill people. Let's ban hammers.
You could say knives, like you could,
Box
you know,
cutters. Box cutters are used.
most most houses have
Box cutters
multiple knives.
potentially.
Like,
Swimming pools. In swimming pools, people could potentially drown. Let's ban swimming pools.
do you know what I noticed on planes? I'm not sure if you'll know. There are some companies that have no problem with like like metal knives and forks on planes. There are some companies that no problem whatsoever, and then there are other companies that they give you some flimsy
Plasticky shit.
nonsense
Yeah, yeah.
to
Oh look, the whole
use, which
man. I've
you're
been
like
through.
snapping. You're like snapping the fork as you're trying to cut through this. Like, you know what I mean? And
Dude,
then
I've
there's
I've been through so many airport securities, and the ridiculousness of the whole theater of airport
yeah,
securities is just it's absurd. Like you get old women, old grandmothers in on walkers, um, like, and they're patting them down, and like they're getting. It's just like the most. They've just gone to such an extreme to go through this theater that if you were actually really wanted to do something, you would just find other ways to get around it. Like it's not as if they're like
I'm actually
all they're doing is
surprised.
inconveniencing everyone.
I'm actually, I have to say, I'm actually surprised. I'm surprised that we're still allowed to just wear our own clothes on a plane. I'm surprised that
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the world that we live in. No,
yeah.
seriously, I'm not even joking, dude. I'm surprised the world that we live in is that it's not like we get to the airport, we have to like we go into like some sort of cubicle or whatever. They give us like a bodysuit.
Yeah.
Um,
You're still sleeping here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, mate. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, hang. I thought I'd come in. Hang on. Shit.
no worries. I was just saying,
I've got to
I'm
find someone
surprised that.
else.
Can you go outside?
Yeah, that's why I needed.
What's that?
Hang on, I'll see if I can find some battery left. I'll see if I can find somewhere else. Hello.
Okay, hello.
So what I was saying is, I'm surprised that that they haven't tried to make us just wear like bodysuits. So we get to the airport and like get undressed, like in a cubicle or something. Like you have to leave all your clothes and then you wear like a bodysuit and then you have to go through some sort of like thing so that they can know that you haven't got like anything on you. I'm surprised that they haven't tried to like push that on us, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to push that on us in future at some stage, just under the guise of like it's for our benefit, for our own security. Um, you know, that would be an inconvenience. That would be an inconvenience. Um, but yeah, look, I don't know. I haven't. Have there been any incidents recently when it comes to planes? I don't know. I can't think of any. The ones that I can think of are always like something goes wrong mechanically. It's not not that much going on when it comes to people. Um, yeah, but just going back to this thing that Richard Hart wrote. Let me see what else is he. I know he tweeted some other stuff recently. Let me see if I can find it. Tweets. Hmm. I can never I can never find tweets on Twitter. I can never find them. Like the most recent. I would love to have like something on Twitter, like just a drop down that says in order, in chronological order, newest to oldest, oldest to newest, like a filter that you could filter through people's tweets. I can never seem to find. I can never seem to find stuff. Anyway. So I think Bluey's gone. He's left. I don't know if he's coming back or not. But look, we thought we'd do this stream today. I'm going to have a quick look and see if there's anything else that I want to talk about. Oh, yeah. There was a tweet. Richard Hart did a tweet that says, I grew up poor. I lived in a warehouse. I worked hard and eventually raised $27.5 million for charity, wrote self-help books, self-help videos, called the Bitcoin top at 65,000 years ago. The last time I was at my mum's house, I installed a bidet for her. I did everything I could to help people not get scammed, giving their money to companies that promise you opportunity but deliver you bankruptcy. Celsius, BlockFi, FTX, and more. Don't drink, don't gamble, don't trade. Consider raising money for charity and definitely install a bidet for your mum. There's a video on how to do it on richardhart.com. I'm doing the best I can to make the world a better place. And I want you on my team. Be the change you wish to see in the world. That's the tweet, yeah. I think it's fair enough that he points some of this stuff out. I mean, you think about it. How much of that money would have got donated to the Foundation had it not been for Richard Hart? Probably none of it. So it's completely legitimate for him to point that out. I think, and I think it's also. I think it's also legitimate for him to be defending himself right now. Well, not even defending himself, just pointing out some of the good things that he's done. Just imagine if the SENS Foundation were to find some sort of, life extension hack that got people to live longer. I know there's people out there that don't necessarily believe that people should live longer. I do. I think it would be great if we could live longer, but only if we can live well. I've seen far too many people suffer for many, many years because they're on, medications or whatever that don't necessarily give them a great quality of life. And I'm not saying we should get rid of those people. I'm just simply saying that it's not necessarily the type of way that I would like to, I wouldn't necessarily like to, have heaps of pain and suffering in the final weeks or months of my existence.
What are you talking about now? You're talking about your own death.
I'm just talking. I don't know how I got onto that, but I was just talking about. I was talking about SENS. How
Okay.
I was just reading a tweet from Richard Hart, and he was talking about his raising 27 million, which is a legit thing that he made happen. Like, he didn't donate 27 million, but he made that happen. Like, if it wasn't for him making that happen, the SENS Foundation wouldn't have got those funds.
Yeah. Sure.
So that was.
You know what? One other thing in this whole legal thing is that it's still on. It's all assumed that
Richard Hart controls the OA. And not only that, but like he's the only suspect, so everyone just assumes it's him. But can that be proven in court? Like
They can ask him in court. Well, I guess if he's he doesn't have to testify. In the US, you can plead the fifth, can't you? The Fifth Amendment, which is you won't say anything, you won't testify against yourself in a court of law.
yeah, I don't know how it works with their legal system there, but yeah, I think he doesn't have to testify or anything. I mean, that's if but that's also if it goes
I've
that
watched
far.
enough.
Like that.
I've watched enough Law and Order
Yeah.
to know,
You don't
like
have to
some things
testify.
about the US legal system. You can plead the fifth. I've heard you plead the fifth.
Yeah.
The Fifth Amendment, that you don't like.
Don't incriminate yourself. The right to not
Yeah,
incriminate yourself. Yeah.
You got the right to not incriminate yourself. Yeah. So, I would imagine that he probably would not put himself in a position where he has to answer those questions, right?
I mean, you'd think it wouldn't even get to that far, you know, like it'll just be like they'd bring that
Well,
kind
I
of
think that if he was on the stand, they would probably ask him straight out that question, right?
yeah.
Straight out.
Yeah.
They would just say, "Do you
The thing
have
is,
the
like,
private keys?"
okay, so put
So
yourself
why
in here.
would you put yourself in that position?
But also, it's kind of like put yourself in his position. You're starting up a cryptocurrency that your design intention of that cryptocurrency is to basically become the world's money, right? To take over the world in terms of what people use. How would you set up those addresses? Like legally, what would you do? Like you'd have some sort of strategy or tactic.
Bro, forget legally. It's maths. It's maths.
Well, obviously there's that side of it. It can't be taken down. But in terms of to protect yourself from the US
No, but
government,
not even about not being able to be taken down. It's just maths. It's like
he's published maths basically. Yeah. But
no, but private keys are just maths.
yeah.
They're just maths. So, you know,
But also, wouldn't you add on a layer of security and add on a layer of legal security? Like I'm
I
thinking
don't know.
I'd at least set up a trust.
Dude, we shouldn't like speculate about the stuff that we completely know not, like we don't know. All I would say,
But that's my point. That's my
Yeah.
point. No one knows.
no one knows.
And
Yeah.
everyone's just assuming that he
The
has
SEC is the number one, the number one entity, assuming, making assumptions out the yin yang.
yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
awful,
And that was
like
And that was very
easily
obvious.
provable.
That was very obvious in their complaint that
Yeah.
they have made a ton of assumptions. Like
Yeah.
we know that there's no way they're going to be able to prove that $12 million he spent, which is only a fraction of like.
Not only would they most likely have no way of proving it, because it's most likely not the case that he used any of those funds.
Yeah, he probably used something. He probably used funds from his that he had
probably
from
used
before.
his own funds.
Yeah,
He probably just bought it from his own. He probably bought the stuff of his own funds that he's paid tax.
Yeah. He sold some Bitcoin and Ethereum or whatever.
You know what I mean? Like whatever
The other thing
was
to
done. The question is this: whatever was done, what right would a US court have to go into another country and subpoena or like get documentation? Like that's a very like uphill battle. It's not easy. It's not easy for countries to go into other countries and say, "Hey, I need your system to go and get this information for us outside of this country." Like, what you have to ask yourself, what does that country that's doing all this legwork for the US get out of it? What are they going to get out of it? Like, why will they do this?
Interestingly, if he is in Finland, that actually happened to Finland. The US, the CIA went to Finland, and this is told by the foreign minister of Finland at the time. They turned up and they wanted to access the WikiLeaks servers, and he kicked them out of their country. I mean, I don't know if that would happen now, like Finland is trying to get into NATO and shit. Like, who knows who's in power now in Finland and whether they would just acquiesce to whatever the American CIA, asks from them. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, what right do they have to just be the world's police to go around?
They've got a right to go and ask. They have every right to go and ask, but
They can
they've
ask,
got no
but
they've got no right to go in and then just blase walk in and say, hey, you have to give us this. As you said, like the country can just go, and why? And assuming there actually is any information to get. Do you know what I mean? Like we're making an assumption here. So I think that the SEC's case is going to have so many hurdles, but you never know, dude, because all sorts of weird shit happens in US, like legal, all sorts of like weird stuff happens.
That's true. Yeah.
But I think that if anyone would be prepared, it would be RH, because he was prepared before Hex even launched, like well versed with the Howey test, well versed.
And even these lawyers that I heard talking about even the Howey test is kind of like why do you use the Howey test? Like that's even a kind of like,
because it's a precedent. There's a precedent that's been set with the Howey, like SEC versus Howey. So that it's like that was a precedent, and that's how law, I guess, works. It's like the precedents are set, and then you can go and rely. Well, this has been done in the past, so this has been done in the past, and now we're going to rely on this as what we're going to lean on for to inform,
I guess,
how we deal with situations in the future.
Yeah.
Hey man, it's like definitely, and that's why I called this stream slow and steady, because this is going to be a slow and steady process, in my opinion. I think we're going to be
it's in the years, eh?
I think it might be, it might not. It depends. It might get booted out. Like I can see a situation where, because I feel like they're tying a long bow to tie
Drawing a long bow, yeah.
the Uniswap Incorporated in New York to then try this in New York. Like I feel like they're tying a long bow to just get that happen. Like Richard Hart's got nothing to do with New York. Fucking nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As far as I know. I don't like, as far as I know, that guy's got nothing to do with New York.
Yeah.
Here's a comment. Hi, it's copy paste civil case with really bad argument, even for me who has no legal case experience. It's for political points, in my opinion. SEC, look how many I sued. They seem to be going, that seems to be the route that they've taken in the last like 6 months to a year. They're just like, let's just like,
Yeah, they're thrashing out because they don't know what to do. I mean, it's also just an extortion, straight up extortion. They want to settle and just get the money, probably.
Yeah. I don't know, but how much could they get though? Like what? And
well, they got 27 million from a 4 billion, the EOS 4 billion ICO. That was a few years ago. So I don't know, another 27 mil.
Yeah, but they raised a lot more. That was a lot more money was raised in that.
Yeah, 4 billion. Yeah, but it was 4 billion like 5 years ago. It's only 1 billion now.
Isn't it the other way around? Isn't
the other way
4 billion
around?
5 years?
Yeah, you're right. It's
Yeah.
the other way around. Yeah.
It would be like, with how much money was printed, it'd be like 10 to 20 billion now.
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I just it's one of those things that.
And it's so silly, isn't it? Because it's like if the EOS thing. Okay, yeah, we admit we sold an unregistered security, we pay the fine, and then nothing changes. Like it still is traded.
EOS did die after that, though, didn't they?
But that was their own fault. It wasn't after that though. That was just their own. mean, it's still going. They still make
It's
products.
still going, but the different there's a big difference between EOS and like Hex, for example. Massive difference, right? And the difference is that go like do this for me. Go to the Hex office, Hex head office. Someone please go to the Hex head office and find it. It's like it doesn't
Right.
exist.
So EOS must have had a some sort of entity that
EOS
was sued.
had like
Yeah.
wages and salaries to pay. There was something there, you know, and a
Yeah,
lot
there
of
was some.
these,
What is it called? It was called. I can't remember the name of the company that was running it. Yeah,
and
you're right.
there's a lot of companies in blockchain. There's a lot of blockchains that have head offices and people to pay, and that's how
Yeah,
they're set up.
yeah.
So they're
But
set up
Pulse
in
Chain and Hex doesn't have Jack. Yeah.
no, it doesn't have anything. It
Mm.
doesn't. There's nothing. There's
Yeah.
just people who, I guess, volunteer their time.
It's just hobbyists, basically.
There's a lot of people who have built like. There's a lot of people, we know because they're almost like starving artists slash devs who have come along and say, hey, I would like to. And when I say starving, you know, when they come in the beginning and start doing something, they're starving. By the end, after a few years
Yeah.
of being in crypto, they're probably quite well to do. But they just build stuff because they see a need for it. You know, they build stuff because they see a need for it. And you look at something like HSI Watch, a website that is a very useful website for a lot of people. And it's free. You use it for free. And it was made, someone just volunteered their time to make it.
Yeah.
And you think of, you know, all the stuff like that, you know, the Hedron people or Alex has done, like all of that stuff that he did that benefited a lot of people and made a lot of people like money, I guess, was all just done because he had the
And there,
ability, he had the ability to do it, and B, he had the will, the goodwill to do it as well. You know, all
yeah.
the Hedron stuff, all the Arcosa stuff, all that stuff, all, you know, all the Maxi stuff as well. The Maximus DAO stuff, all of that
Especially all of those things which never asked for sacrifices.
yeah,
Like,
especially.
for me, that's the bar has been set with those kinds of things. Like,
Yeah. I was having a discussion with an accountant recently about, he was trying to understand, like, because, you know, in an address there you might have all sorts of rubbish tokens and things in there, and he's like, where, explain to me, like, why would anyone ever send you something?
free. Yeah.
You know, why would anyone ever do it? I'm like, probably to scam you. Like a lot of the real claims, you'll go and you actually have to go and claim it and spend like some
Yes.
gas
So you're
to then
spending yeah.
yeah. So and he's like, but what about these other ones? Like, you know, these, if people have sent you an NFT or if people have sent you a few tokens, and I'm like, a surefire way to know that something is a scam is like in the name of the token, it will have a website address,
Yeah.
right? That they're trying to bait you to go to that website address to then, you know, and then they'll try and scam you or something somehow. You know, maybe they'll send you to a Telegram chat or a Discord, and then they'll just work on you slowly to try and get you to give
Or
over.
when you're connecting to their site, there's an approval in there that they ask you to approve, and
Yeah, yeah,
then it's like,
yeah.
see you later. Yeah.
There'll be like there'll be something. There'll be an angle that they're trying to work at.
Yeah.
And he's like, but why would people do it? I'm like, that's why they do it. That's just. And I was also explaining how nonsense it is that, for example, an airdrop can be deemed a taxable event, right? I was
Right.
explaining how nonsense that actually is in real
Right.
terms. And he's like, well, it makes sense. Like if you get something, you should be, that's for free and it's of value, you should be taxed at the time you get it. And I'm like, no. And I'll explain to you why. Because I can go make a token, 1 billion tokens, right? This afternoon, after this stream, I could go make a token that has 1 billion token supply.
Yeah.
And then I
You
could
sell one of them
I
to
could
me
sell
for
no, I could
$100.
I could sell 10 of them. I could sell 10 of them for $1 each, right? I could sell 10 of them for $1 each. And now we have a market price of $1 per token and a market cap of $1 billion, right? And then once I've achieved that, Blue Bum, if I know your address, I can send you 900 million tokens, which $900 million that you're going to have to pay tax on according to that way of looking at the rule.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, and I explained to him that sort of stuff can happen. And if that happened, it's like, it doesn't make sense. Like there's no, A, you wouldn't be able to pay tax on that. And B, it doesn't even make sense that that's how you would assess it.
Yeah.
Something
Totally.
like that. It should only be assessed
At the realized value, if at all.
when at the very, it should be, I believe it should be, probably not taxed at all, but if you wanted to say, okay, hang on, let's have a little bit of like, let's try and be reasonable. You might say, well, what about when you actually turn it into dollars from that country? That do you know what I mean? Like that, that seems like the most reasonable thing. But anything that's like on the blockchain, it seems like it's like overreach that like every little transaction would be deemed to be a taxable event. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous way of doing it because it is just mathematical equations ultimately. And the only thing that should matter is when you turn it into dollars.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that should matter.
Like if at all. Yeah.
I'll give you an example, right? If I have a piece of fabric, right? When I cut that piece of fabric to shape, is that a taxable event? It's no longer what it was before. It's been transformed into something slightly different. Is that a taxable event? Well, no, it's not.
Well,
what about when I stitch it together? Is that a taxable event? No. It's only a taxable event when I sell that item. When I actually sell that item for money, that would be deemed a taxable event. What about, for example, I'll tell you another one that doesn't make any sense to me at all. When you are paying your gas, right? Using gas to do a transaction. Let's say you bought Ethereum a few years back at $100, right? And you've just had that Ethereum in your account. It's appreciated in value, but you haven't sold it. You've just kept it. But today you go and do a transaction and you spend some gas, right? Let's say you spend 0.001, right? Point 1 would be 180, 0.01 would be 18, and let's just say 0.01, right? $18. Okay. $18. You use $18, you will most likely have like a taxable event of a capital gain of like close to $18 because you've spent gas. Now, to me, that's ridiculous. And I'll tell you why it's ridiculous. It's an equivalent of you going to the petrol station, right? Filling up your car with petrol. And then let's say you drive around for like 2 weeks and then the price of petrol goes up.
Petrol spikes.
It spikes. Let's say it goes from $1 to $2. When you actually use the petrol, the ATO is saying to you, hey, you used that petrol when it was worth $2. Now you owe us a capital gain of $1 on the amount of petrol you used. It's fucking ridiculous. It makes no sense, right? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So that element of the way that side of things works makes no sense to me. At the very, like, I can understand if you're selling something into dollars and then taking a profit, but that whole thing, I don't agree with it. It is the way it works in Australia, at least, but I don't agree with it. And I mean, I have to follow that. But and abide by it, unfortunately. But I don't agree with it. But you've got to do what you've got to do when you're living in certain places. Yeah.
It's kind of why I left. Yeah. One of the reasons.
Yep. Look, dude, we've been going for 55, 56 minutes. Was there anything else you wanted to? I had a bit of a rant there. You can get me to complain again about taxes every day of the fucking week. I could just complain about it all day long, no problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there anything else that you want to cover?
I mean, nothing that springs to mind right now. It was really nice to see that tweet from Richard when I woke up this morning. I think it's pretty clear what his position is. I don't think he's going to settle. I think he's going to stand on his principles. That's how I read it, which makes me really happy. I haven't even looked at the prices. How did the market react today? Oh, it's all green.
Yeah, everything bounced back, I think, from what I could see, which is awesome. Yeah, that is like a good sign that things bounce back. But we don't know more stuff.
We're still like at 45% down from before the complaint. Still.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, still down.
Yeah.
But it not as like it bounced back from. I think how far did it go down? 60% or?
Yeah, about 60%. Yeah.
Because I bought, like, I don't know about you, but I bought.
I was so close. I ended up just giving liquidity to certain things, but I haven't bought. No. I threw a bit of liquidity on Ethereum.
Dude, I bought everything.
I don't even know. Actually, I don't even know if it went through.
I bought all RH stuff, man. I just bought all RH stuff. How can you not, dude? Like, I'm talking about, like, how could I not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I can't bear to see bargains like that, and not at least dip my toes in. I can't help it. I'm not.
But do you think that's it? Do you think that's all we see is just those couple of days of down, and it's going to pretty much just
it's really hard to say,
climb back up now?
I don't know, dude. It's really hard to say. I mean, more stuff could, like, it depends what happens. Like, it all depends. Like, it's sort of like external to anything in the community right now. The one thing that's going to be a big, I think this premiere of the Highest of Stakes, we're going to see how that, like, what that does to the market, because I can't help but think that people might go and see it. Like, just Hexicans might go and see it and go, hey, this is gonna, like, regardless of whether it's.
Oh, they get super bullish from seeing it or something.
Maybe, like, it won't make them, like, it makes you think, right? But they might, like, people might have the perspective of, like, hey, this is really gonna be people are gonna talk about this.
Right.
And that's the best thing that you could have when it comes to crypto, is like word of mouth, like people talking about, oh, have you seen this? And
that's especially outside of crypto Twitter, you know what I mean? Outside of the crypto bubble. Like, this has the potential to go into Normsville.
Yeah. I would love to see. Yeah, I'm gonna have to stay off. I'm surprised, bro. I'm surprised you're not flying in to see.
To Miami.
Or they're just flying in to see the movie. Like, I'm surprised you're not going, like, actively saying, hey, I need to go see this. I
mean, it'll mean flying back to America. Yeah,
I guess that's an expensive movie ticket,
that is an expensive movie ticket just to go watch the film.
Would
Yeah,
you
I didn't
go?
really think of it.
You would go back to the UK if it went there, wouldn't you?
I'm going to be in the UK next week. So if
Yeah,
it's, I mean, I've been trying to suss out if there's any screenings anywhere else. I can't find any. Like as soon
yeah,
as I get a chance to, I'll see it. I kind
yeah.
of, I've seen all of the trailers. I kind of feel like I know more or less what the movie's going to be anyway.
I think that it's going to be from the I've listened to the interviews, and they're all like, what you've seen there does not represent how the movie plays out. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting.
My guess is that they're going to present both sides, and they're going to leave you. They're going to leave it. They're not going to have a definite thing on what it is, and it's going to be up to the viewer to decide. It's going to be a bit ambiguous, and
Yeah.
therefore people are going to like. If you're someone who hates Richard Hart, you're going to go and see it, and you're going to still hate Richard Hart.
Oh yeah,
If you're
yeah,
the
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
person who loves Richard Hart, you're going to go and see it, and you're going to still love. So I think it's just going to probably polarize people, but it's just going to bring the story to a lot more people.
But you'll
And
talk
for
about
instance,
it. Like people will
and,
talk about it, even if they didn't like it. They will
yeah,
talk
and the
about it.
people who want to dig and are interested and who start digging, like just like we did, they'll find out and they'll realize what an opportunity it is. And that might only be a small percentage of the total people who see the film, but that's how the community grows. And like, just look
Yeah,
how strong this community is. Like this, like whenever I go onto Twitter now, that's all I see. Like it's literally all I see is just
yeah.
all of
How,
this stuff.
how do we not have how does the community not grow in the next bull market?
Yeah,
Like there would have to be some ultra like bad shit on a code level that happens. Like that's always been my position. I feel like there has to be something that happens on the code level, or you know what I mean, or some like stuff that is just not above board from like a movement of funds. But there's nothing has ever happened in that way before in the last 3.5 years. I don't expect it to happen. Who knows what's going to happen? But like my money's on it not happening. Clearly, like I'm like, I'm voting with my money ultimately. In relation to that, so
and your time. Yeah,
and my time. I'm voting with my money and my time. Well, the whole
basically.
time
Yeah,
thing about us. This is for me. This is for pleasure. Like I get a certain amount of enjoyment by talking to my friends on the internet.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so that's why and also I like crypto. I
Yeah,
like the idea of it. I like the idea of being able to transact if you need
self-custody.
to, and
Mm.
transact if you need to, like without
And have
someone saying
have
no,
real
you
ownership
can't.
over your stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I like that, all that stuff. So there's a lot of things that come into it.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, yeah. I think we've had a good chat, mate. Do you wanna we'll
yeah,
leave it at that?
yeah. Cool, man.
All right,
All
no
good.
worries, mate. Thank you to everyone in the chat who came along. We'll see you next week on Not Hex.
Everyone.
Peace.